Once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
What is up, everybody? Just like every other podcast, hope you guys had a fantastic Christmas and happy holidays. Hope everything went well. Hope everybody stayed safe and nobody found themselves in any type of trouble. Welcome back to the DT Show. Today, we're going to be going back into the Bryan Kohberger case. We're going to talk about some documents that have been dropped. There's been some information that's been put out there about potentially him being a suspect in another case and what that means for this trial this upcoming year. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. I want to thank everybody in the live chat already. Please hit that like and subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Okay, so let's get into this. All righty, so this is the Idaho State government website, and we have a couple of documents that were dropped. On the 18th of December, we have a stipulated motion to seal state's motion to extend, amend, and no contact orders, and stipulated motion to seal state's supplement response to request for discovery. Now, let's open up these, and we'll talk about what they are separately and what they could mean. So this one is the response for request for discovery regarding expert testimony. So this is going to be interesting. You know, this is referencing, I'm assuming that, so remember we had that ex parte hearing not too long ago, and a lot of people were kind of wondering what it could have been. And last time that we had an ex parte hearing had to do with an expert testimony. And remember at that point, it was about one of the experts passing away, and this was a mitigation expert, not necessarily an actual expert that's going to be testifying during the trial. This is if Bryan Kohberger is found guilty. This has to do with, you know, his sentencing. And I question, like, hey, you know, the last one was referencing that scenario. They had somebody on the books, and they passed away. And so now they need to find somebody else. At that time, I'm not sure if they'd found anybody or if, you know, there was any documentation of the next person they were wanting to bring on. But what I'm assuming is that this last ex parte hearing, based on this information here, probably was in referencing to finding said expert, right? So they didn't have one back then. I think this one is finding who this expert is, and they don't want to show their hand to the prosecution for whatever reason. It's kind of weird. I think that the judge kind of not necessarily exposed the defense's, you know, what they were trying to do when saying that, you know, I understand it's a mitigation, you know, expert or whatnot, that this wasn't necessarily something to have to do with the actual, you know, whether or not he's innocent or guilty. So I think that might be, that's what I think might be what this could be about. But let's read this. This is come down the state of Idaho by and through Latah County. Prosecuting attorney hereby moves the court pursuant to Idaho Court Administrative Rule 32 and requests for discovery regarding expert testimony and all attached exhibits herein because release of disclosure would interfere with the enforcement proceedings. Now, I think everything that is listed in here is what you would see on any of these. I don't think that every single one of these is a stipulation, right? I think that as long as it fits one of these stipulations, because at the end it says or, right? So it says disclosure of identity of confidential source and or disclosure of investigative techniques, procedures. So basically what it's, when it boils it down and it starts, telling these or listing these things, by it saying and or at the end kind of says like, all right, these are all, could be one, could be all, could be some sort of thing. So, but what everybody looks at is the disclosure of disclose the identity of a confidential source. All right. And then the state also dropped this piece of nugget here. And this is the stipulated motion to seal the state's motion to extend no contact orders, amended no contact orders. So they're amending the no contact orders. Does this mean, well, it also says extending, right? So they're extending the ones that they have already had. And I think the key term is there, and amending no contact orders. So are they adding somebody that they don't want Bryan Kohberger and his defense team to not contact? And that could be interesting. But again, this one says disclosure of identity of confidential source and or disclosure of investigative technique and procedures. Now, this is basically the same thing. The only thing is the motion. This is a motion to extend no contact orders and amend the no contact orders. Now, so to me, it's just, well, they're extending and they're adding. I mean, that tells me they're adding somebody to it, right? I wonder who that could be. Now, this is from the last time that we've heard of no contact orders. This was back in January of 2023. I want to thank Warning Label Nina for helping me out with this. She helped me out a lot today, getting a lot of the documents and stuff. So I want to say thank you so much. I also want to shout out Jeff H. I'm not sure if he's here yet or not, but he's helping me out, work some things on the Karen Reed case. I know that a little bit earlier there was I was going to kind of do both topics today, but I think I'd rather kind of split them up and do them one at a time. And I think we're going to talk about the Karen Reed case come Saturday. So you don't want to miss that. Jeff H. Shout out to him. He helped me out with some audio stuff that we're looking at in that case. All right, back to this one. So this is the no contact order. We have DM, which I think we can assume is Dylan Mortenson. We have JK. So there's two JKs. Not sure who those people could be. BM and KC. Then you have a slew of last initial G's, which I'm assuming these are the Goncalveses. So BF is, in my opinion, Bethany Funke. KL, SL. I'm not sure. And then with the end in C, I'm assuming this is Chapin. I think that some of these could be like step parents' initials as well. And there's a victim's rights notification form. KL and SL were part of both of those. Brian's sister. See, I thought maybe that could be the case, but I think one of them is Amanda and the other one is something else that doesn't start with a J. Melissa, I think is it. It's what it is. Jasmine Kernodle. There it is. So JK can be Jasmine Kernodle. And then maybe her father. Okay, BM and KC. So basically what I can tell are these are those that are related to the victims and their family members. Now, there's a no contact order for BF, Bethany Funke, right? Let's remember that at one point they wanted to do have a hearing so that they can talk with Bethany Funke. This was the defense's side. I think there's no contact order prevented them from doing so. I know that there was a situation where they thought they were going to have a sit down, at least over the phone or something to that nature, with Bethany's lawyers and attorneys. and Bryan Kohberger's lawyers and attorneys and speak about what they may or may not know. Now, from what I've heard through the grapevine and through some people that I trust, that what Bethany saw that night, that is quote unquote exculpatory, and I put that in quotations, is that she saw somebody undressed running out the back. I don't see how that is exculpatory to Bryan Kohberger. I guess that it's a different description than what you saw Dylan, or what Dylan said she saw, but it doesn't mean that Bethany. So my assumption, this is my assumption, is that she walked up the stairs, probably hearing a lot of the same commotion. I think her bed was like right under Ethan and Miss Kernodle's room. And so I think that because of that, I think maybe she did hear some commotion. Maybe she heard the thud. Maybe she heard some of the noises as well. And she went up and climbed up the stairs and looked out and saw somebody perhaps running out of the back of the glass door there without any clothes on. Now, a lot of people would question, like, how is there a lack of DNA in the vehicle? Well, if he took off his clothes and wiped himself down very quickly, just, if he had some stuff laid out there before he went in, some slip-on shoes, things of that nature, it's very well possible that he went out there, took off his clothes, put it in a bag, had a towel or something there and wiped himself down as quickly as possible. He may have already had his seats already wrapped in something, and then a lot of people say, well, he went driving around, if somebody pulls him over and they see his seats all dextered out, are they going to, or one seat, because he really doesn't need to protect the other seat, right? There's nobody actively bleeding inside of that Hyundai Elantra. So, he needs to make sure that he's not flinging things around, right? And he really needs to more pay attention to protecting the certain things that he's touching. Remember, it took about 18 minutes for him to get to somewhere that probably would have taken like 8 minutes, right? So there's about an extra 10, maybe 12, 10 to 8 minutes there that are unaccounted if he drove straight there. And I know a lot of people think that maybe perhaps that's where he disclosed some of the evidence, and I think that's probably accurate. May have been also where wiped down himself a little bit further and changed into some clothing. But I don't see how it's exculpatory to Bryan Kohberger if Bethany saw somebody running out the back without clothes. It'd be different if, like, Bethany saw somebody in the house, walking without clothes, and then turned towards Dylan's room, and then Dylan sees the same person and says they weren't wearing clothes. That they were wearing clothes. that might be something there, but even at that, it's very dark in there. She's paralyzed in fear. I think you would assume that somebody would see if somebody's not wearing clothes or not, but I don't know. I don't think that's the case. I think he went into that kitchen and changed. And one of the reasons why I think that is there are some pictures out there, and I need to go find them. I'll have them for the next show. But there are some pictures of the kitchen where you can see red marked areas, around the kitchen cabinets on the, in the kitchen area. And, that made a lot of people speculate that maybe perhaps that's where the crime initiated. Somebody ran into somebody in the kitchen or something to that nature, based on the fact that there was a little bit of blood out there. And I don't think so. If we take in consideration of what Bethany is potentially saying, I don't know this for 100% fact. I've not talked to Bethany or anybody associated with her lawyers or her team or anything like that. So I don't know exactly what she said from her. I'm just saying what I've heard, which I do from people that I from folks, many folks that I trust. So some of those that also are reporting on this case have told me the same thing. Well, anyways, if Bryan Kohberger was wearing this jumpsuit and he took off his clothes before, going out there and getting in his vehicle, isn't it possible that when he was removing his clothes that he would have flung some of the excess blood and stuff like that that was on his person or on the clothing that he was wearing. And that's why we see a small amount of droplets here and there. And I think that's quite possible. But we'll see in court. I mean, that's the only thing we can know about that. For that and for that. But let's see. But so to add more people on here. Now, who could they have been? Now, I know that there was the IGG, and a lot of folks have considered the IGG being what the informants are, or who the informants are. I think there's a strong possibility to that. My assumption is that Bryan Kohberger wants to reach out to some of these family members, or maybe not Bryan Kohberger himself, but the attorneys, and try to see if any of those individuals opted out of the allowing law enforcement to utilize their DNA to catch suspects. They're trying to find, in my opinion, I think that's what they're trying to do. And I think that's probably the most logical explanation behind who the confidential source could be. We do know that there was another person out that night, and that was the DoorDash driver. Is it possible that the DoorDash driver saw something and they are a confidential informant, maybe because they went through the FBI tip line to inform law enforcement that they were the DoorDash driver that dropped something off that night? And maybe perhaps they saw something. Maybe they saw the Elantra. Maybe they saw some features of the driver that they weren't, maybe they didn't know who the driver was, but they can identify after the fact. Like, oh yeah, hey, that is the guy that I saw. I couldn't tell you that was him before because I'd never met him before. But now that you've, shown me a picture of him, and I'm assuming because there was a few days there, between December 19th and the 27th or the 29th when they arrested him, I'm assuming that they probably would have gone to the DoorDasher if the DoorDasher saw anything and said, hey, put a lineup of some people, Bryan Kohberger in the middle of it, and say, hey, any of these people look familiar? And maybe perhaps that's another identification. The only thing I have about it is, well, you know what? I don't know if that would come out in the PCA. Because remember, at the end of the day, the PCA is only the bare minimum, bare bones of things. This is just what you need so that you can get a probable cause for the arrest, right? You have probable cause for the arrest, and you also have probable cause to continue charging, right? And one is early on when you see a magistrate right after you've been arrested. The other one is when you get indicted. And so you have to have those, the probable cause is that you have reason to believe that this person committed a crime, and you can, search this person's body or hold him in custody. And the other one is an actual charge. That's when you get charged for the crime. I think that because it's less information that you would actually need at grand jury. So, right. So you have grand jury, the burden of proof there is not very high, right? Everybody says that there's this saying, you can indict a ham sandwich. Well, for probable cause, the burden of proof is even lower, right? It's just, do you more than likely believe that this person may have committed a crime, right? And, obviously there's got to be some things that showed up, as far as reason and in view of the officer or not. But I'm going a little bit too far into specifics. But for the most part, that's how those are separated. So when you look at the probable cause affidavit, it's really not everything. It's just the bare minimum. So maybe perhaps they wouldn't have put that in there, that they had somebody identify him or identify his features or something to that nature from the DoorDasher. I think that might be a possibility. Let's see. Sparkly Starfish says that's 2 minutes per person going in and finding rooms and people leaving. a house and total cleanup of 8 minutes. Is that realistic for one person? There was a guy in Australia in an airport. He took the lives of 6 and stabbed like 15 others in the matter of like about 16, 17 minutes. The weird thing is about that one is like 12 minutes of that, he was running from police, and his victims weren't asleep in the middle of the night, defenseless or under the influence of alcohol. So yeah, it doesn't take very long for somebody to lose their life to a knife, unfortunately. 8 minutes is plenty of time to do a lot of things. You know, that house was pretty small, actually. You know, it was 3 floors, but it wasn't like 3,000 square foot home or anything like that. Everything was pretty close together. And if you were watching this house from the outside, you would be able to see Maddie Mogen's bedroom pretty clearly from the back area there. So I think that was his target. That's where he went in. He just, you know, Kaylee was in the same room, and then he ended up with Ethan and Miss Kernodle as collateral there. But yeah, I think it's more than enough time, to be honest with you, for somebody to go in there in the dead of night to you know, when people are asleep and defenseless. It's not like these people were wide awake, waiting at their door in full combat position, ready to fight. I'm not sure where this fantasy comes into play, where people think that that was a possibility. Danny, do you think that Michael Kohberger could be the CI? I mean, he definitely knows his son. I'm sure BK was tweaking out on him in front of him on that trip. I mean, it's possible. I mean, it could be any of his family members, but I mean, I'd be just speculating, to be honest with you. I don't know. I do know that it sounds like maybe 1 or 2 of his family members may have said something, you know, early on, but I haven't heard it from them either, so I can't tell you for sure. You know what I mean? But all right, let's continue this. So this is the no contact orders, right? Interesting stuff there. Now, up back here, there was another thing that was dropped just today. In fact, Nina is the one who brought it up to my attention. It was a subpoena for deuces tecum. Forgive my Latin. But basically what this is, and I looked it up a couple of different places. It's a court hearing involving the subpoena deuces tecum. It refers to an order requiring a person to produce documents, records, or other tangible evidence relevant to a legal case. The term comes from Latin, meaning you shall bring with you. This type of subpoena is commonly used when one party in a case needs specific evidence, such as emails, contracts, medical records, or financial documents to support their argument or defense. So I'm assuming this could be from either side. This could be from the state, and it could be from from Bryan Kohberger's defense team. My opinion is probably Bryan Kohberger's defense team. A hearing may be held if there is a dispute whether the subpoena is valid, overly broad, or seeks privileged or confidential information. And so let's look at another one that has happened before. So this is the one in state of Idaho. This was the subpoena deuces tecum. This is for the Lori Vallow case. And in this case here, it states here, you are here commanded to produce or permit inspection of copying of the following documents or objects, including electronically stored information at the place, date, and time as specific below. State of Idaho prosecutor for Fairmont County. Let's see. At the state of Idaho, the entire file and its contents in regards to the investigation of Chad Daybell, Lori Daybell, conspiracy, attempted murder as identified in the correspondence letter from the state of Idaho Attorney General Lawrence G. Wasden, dated April 9, 2020. By this way of subpoena, we seek the following records, whether tangible or intangible. All records and reports, notes, charts, communications, correspondence, exhibits, evidence, data, and the like of the other prosecutorial office and its agents regarding the investigation of Chad Daybell, Lori Daybell, etc., as I mentioned before, as identified in correspondence letter from the state of Idaho Attorney Office General Lawrence G. Watson, dated April 9, 2020. All communications, tangible, intangible, whether formal or informal, personal or personal, obtained within the scope of employment, position, or personality, recordings, electronic mails, text messages, online, internet communications. So I think this is probably what we're going to see also when it comes to the Bryan Kohberger case is like, all right, we want to know everything that you guys have, you know, all your communications, your whole thing, your whole spew. And I think this is probably going to come from, I would assume it potentially could be from the defense team towards the prosecution. You know, they did also a 20th supplement request for discovery or something like that. And so I think that also has could play a role in what they're asking for. Let's see. They want photographs, recordings. I mean, this is basically everything that they have on the case is what they're asking for. And so I'm assuming this is probably standard. I'm not really, I'm not an attorney, and I've never been involved in, never been arrested for, especially for something like this. So I don't know, but I'm assuming that it's probably coming from the defense's side towards the prosecution for things. Let's see. It's a Kohberger disorder. Huh. Oh, are you talking about something else? My bad. Alrighty. So this is interesting to me. I'm going to look more into this to see if there's anything else this could possibly be. But I would assume that this is going to be towards the prosecution. Maybe they're going to ask for the identity of the genetic genealogy of persons that enter their DNA into those websites where they can get their relatives and all those other things figured out. I think that might be what they're also asking for. You know, there's a couple of things that they could be. If it's the prosecution asking from the defense, maybe perhaps a more outlined of his alibi, like exactly where he was, which direction he actually went. Not just, oh yeah, I was south and east, you know, somewhere out there, you know, looking at stars. I mean, if this is something that obviously he didn't have his phone connected to anything, so he wasn't on GPS or any of those things. He must have been familiar with where he was. If you're doing that without those type of things. So could it be the alibi? Could it be, it could be a lot of things, in my opinion. So you guys let me know in the comment section. Let me know in the live chat what you guys think. I'm not too, but I do think that in the end of the day, this might be, you know, this is a state of Idaho, state of Idaho Attorney General Criminal Defense, Criminal Law Division. And so this is to the Attorney General. I think that might be the case. It's probably sealed. Obviously, I don't understand why we can't open it, but it doesn't allow us. Alrighty. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is this here. So and I wanted to talk about this. So Bryan Kohberger was a person of interest in a home invasion. Bryan Kohberger was charged. All right, we know all this. Let's see. All right. Court TV reviewed body-worn camera footage from officers who responded to a 2021 home invasion where two women reported a masked man breaking into their home. One woman told police she was sleeping when she said, I heard the door open. I looked over and someone was wearing a ski mask and had a knife. The woman told the officers she kicked the unknown person in the stomach and took off running. However, according to the incident report reviewed by ABC News, the victim described the assailant as 5'3" to 5'5", while Bryan Kohberger is 6 feet tall. At the time of attack, Kohberger was not yet registered at the University of Washington, nor were there records of him visiting that area. Pullman police told ABC News that Kohberger is no longer considered a person of interest in this case, though there have been no arrests. So, I listened to it. I've seen the body cam footage, and I think the defense is probably going to try to use this in their favor and say, look, there's somebody else out there. This matches the description of what happened. This closely matches it. If I'm the defense, I'm going to probably say, this matches it more than what Bryan Kohberger was out doing just by driving around. This person over here who cannot be Bryan Kohberger, who is in the area, or at least at one point in time in the area, shortly before these crimes occurred, whether they only be, a year, so it was within a year. And, this could be the actual person, doing what he attempted to do before. I mean, I would understand that argument. They got a point. This does seem kind of close, but the difference is the height is one. Dylan's testimony is going to be the thing that's going to determine, all right, she saw this guy walking right by her, taller than her, close to her height. That's going to pretty much eliminate the fact that this person that committed the crimes on in King Road is the same person that attempted to commit the crimes there. You look at a ski mask. Don't ski masks cover your eyebrows? I believe they do. And so it doesn't seem like it's the same type of mask. So not the right height, not the right mask. And he had a knife with him. Now, what kind of knife it was, that could be interesting, right? So if it was like a pocket knife or a switchblade or like a kitchen knife or something like that, really doesn't fit the same MO. But if it was like, described as a military combat knife, and okay, maybe there's something there. But most home invasions, the persons that are entering the house are going to be wearing dark clothing with some sort of mask, to cover their facial features. That's not uncommon. When those type of things happen, the weapon of choice, if somebody's going to go in there and assault somebody, I mean, if you're trying not to make a lot of noise, you're probably going to use a knife, right? You don't want the sound of the gun alerting other people around. So, I mean, to me, I think it's just more coincidental than anything else, especially if there's no connection between the two. Let's just say that they have some sort of DNA over there. They collected some sort of DNA. Maybe they can, compare the two and say, all right, you know what? This is not the same person. Now, why don't they do an IgG on that DNA? Probably because, well, I'll be honest, it was, and it sounds bad, but, even when I was a police officer and people would say this to me all the time, like, hey, so there's nothing we can do when we report somebody doing something that they know they're going to do something. Right. And we would have to say, well, yeah, but because they haven't done anything yet, even if you somehow know that this is going to happen, and even if it does happening, law enforcement can't go out there and arrest somebody for something that, or hold somebody for something that didn't happen. And so in this instance, because it didn't happen, they're probably not going to put a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Put a lot of resources into that direction. Should they? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's a small area. Financial stuff is difficult for small areas like that. Taxpayer money is what pays for majority of this. And if you have a smaller area, that's less tax money. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of reasons behind that. But yeah, from what I understand, there wasn't anything saying that he actually visited. There was visitation at that time for WSU, and I don't think there's any evidence that he actually went out there. Could have, it could have, but I think if he has a strong alibi, says he was somewhere else, or he can prove it, then obviously he's not. And obviously the police here said that they basically all but cleared him from this incident. So I'm not the type of person that's going to be like, no, he did it, even though it's pretty obvious he didn't. All right, I'll answer some of you guys' questions. Put some stars up there. Let me know what's going on. I want to say thank you to Canadian True Crime Buff for her gift of 5 Drunk Turkey Show memberships. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to go back up. Put a couple of stars if you have some questions. Members, I will answer your questions. So put the stars there, and that just tells me that you're referring your question towards me and they're not talking to somebody else in the chat. Let's see. Daniel, do you think that Michael Kohberger might? No, I already got that one. It's okay. You put it twice. I think they took Jose Cruz as a CIG or cigarette. Moscow PD got the 2021 report on the 16th of November. Interesting. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised that they were. That's when they got the report. I don't know if that's when they listed Bryan Kohberger as a suspect on it, or persons of interest. But yeah, I'm not surprised that they look at Bryan Kohberger in a lot of different cases, not just here, but also in Pennsylvania, or not just there in Idaho, but also in Pennsylvania. We know that they had his parents testify in the Dana Smithers murder, in front of a grand jury. I don't think you get, subpoenaed for those things unless there's some sort of loose connection there at the very minimum. Let's see. I'm comparing the school run to stabbing people. How odd. I don't think I was comparing to a school. I was comparing, it was an assault at an airport. And there was multiple levels that this person ran up and down, and used a knife. So no, it's not, it's pretty, I mean, obviously it's not the same. I think that the person running in broad daylight, and there's persons who are alert and can defend themselves. Yeah, it's probably tougher for that guy. If you're going into a house where people are asleep, they've been drinking, these are young folks who don't even lock the back sliding glass door. So, very open with their home. People were coming in and going, as far as, the type of like parties and stuff that would go on there. So, these were trusting individuals. It was a small town, I think it's a big possibility. Maybe out of real concern, he turned his son in. I'm wondering if they gave the feds permission to use the DNA. I don't think so. I think they, when I talked to Howard Bloom, who spoke with, I don't know who he spoke with exactly. He didn't divulge that information of who his sources were. But when you read the book and you read where his sources came from, it sounds like they're family members and friends of Michael Kohberger. And it doesn't sound like any of them actually said that he turned him in. But then again, maybe that he wouldn't disclose that to his friends. But I think that if it was somebody there, then it may have been maybe his sisters that may have done something, if anything was ever said. Like, again, I have not spoken with any Kohberger or anything like that. Let's see. Oh, well, I don't know if that's for me, but I have no idea what I'm talking about. This says the person that probably thinks Bryan Kohberger's innocent. The DoorDasher driver may have seen the car and may have guessed it was a Nissan, which from the reason is an accurate description of the car in the beginning. I mean, it's possible. I think that when you look at the vehicle, so for me, what that tells me is not necessarily that the DoorDash driver actually identified the vehicle as a Nissan. I think what that tells me is that early on they had a few videos, and then as time progressed, they got more videos from the area, and as they were able to compile these videos and put them in order, and also, like, you know, and in the direction that he was traveling and things of that nature, over time they probably figured out that it was not the 2019 Sentra. So what that told me is that the videos that they had of the vehicle early on also probably weren't the highest grade of video. Probably going to be very difficult to tell certain things from it. But you know, it's going to probably be other videos that are going to be compiled together that made that identification. For some reason, there's this weird thought that law enforcement and the prosecutors are supposed to have all the evidence once they walk in the door. It's supposed to be neatly bundled up together in a box or something, and that right then and there you have all your video evidence from all over the place, right? And all these hours and hours of footage, it's going to be time stamped to, hey, this is the right spot, this is the right location, this is the right place, this is the direction they were going. So this aligns with this video here at this timestamp and aligns with that video at that timestamp. No, man. It's not how things work. This isn't Law and Order or CSI. And I'm telling that to the folks that think that everything has to be there. As far as why they thought it was a Nissan, I mean, it could have been. I mean, people misidentify vehicles all the time. When I was a police officer, it happened so often. You know, we go out to a case, whether it be a hit and run or somebody broke in somewhere and took off in a vehicle, and they say it's one car. We find them, and it's completely different, especially at night. Do you think that that adrenaline would sober you up? I don't know. I've not done the drugs or any of the drugs. Pretty clean. Alcohol is my poison, I guess. And even at that, I don't even drink it very often. But I'm assuming that I don't know. I don't know what stops heroin high or cocaine or whatever the case may be. Whatever he may have been, meth. I don't know. I don't even know if he was on anything. I find it weird that he was up all night. You know, if he did commit these murders, that he was up all day and night, committed the murders, up all night, up all day the next day, traveling back and forth, and then goes back home in the evening the following day. Yeah, you know, I think that you probably got to be on something stronger than coffee to be able to do something like that. But what sobers you up? I don't know. I don't know if it works the same as like alcohol. Yeah, because, you know, cop pulls you over or something, like, you know, your parents come home and you've been drinking a little bit when you were underage. Yeah, you sober up real quick. Well, I couldn't tell you out of experience if that's the same or not. The DoorDasher, all right, yeah, we saw that one. You're here to learn on how not to report on something. Ooh. But don't report on the decision your mom made to keep you. Bye. Let's see. It's a pro-burger disorder. Yeah, pro-burgers are weird. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. This is how you can join the channel. There's a link in the description there as well. Deuces tecum could be concerning a federal investigation. Could that be it? You know, there was Howard Bloom who stated that they were federally investigating Bryan Kohberger for potentially breaking into the WSU chem lab and attempting to build, or on the verge of building, or was in the process of building, or hand built. I don't know. He just know that was had something to do with him building a bomb. I had heard prior to that Bryan Kohberger had broken into the WSU cam lab for other things. I was not privileged to the information of a potential bomb. Last time I spoke to Howard Bloom, which was a couple weeks ago, when the documents dropped that the FBI was in fact aware of Bryan Kohberger before they gave his name to the Moscow Police Department. That was one of the things that he reported on this channel. And, I messaged him, I was like, hey, you were right. You were right. And he said that the other shoe that he dropped was about to fall pretty soon. And that, he didn't tell me what it was, but obviously the shoe that he dropped when he was on the channel was that the break-in at the chem lab. Could that be it? If this could be something to do with a federal investigation, maybe. But I don't know. I'm just speculating. That's my speculation. So how in the heck could someone disrobe without flakes of skin, hair, sweat, blood being casted everywhere? Well, somebody did it, right? I mean, it's not like these murders were imaginary. Somebody went in there, somebody took their lives with a knife in close contact and got out of there without leaving much of their DNA or any DNA behind. So what's more logical? Let's think about this. What's more logical that you would find DNA would be, where this guy comes in, takes the life of 4 people, very close proximity, leaves no DNA behind. And, or somebody who gets in their vehicle, takes off, has 7 weeks to clean it, and you don't find DNA there. It's probably the most likely one is going to be the first one, right? That he doesn't have time to clean. He don't have any of those type of things. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the person that committed this crime went through a lot of planning. That planning probably didn't end at the murders. There's probably some planning beforehand and afterwards. How to get away with the crime, how to prevent themselves from getting caught. In fact, Rex Humerman had some things that he was writing out that had to do with planning of the crimes that he was committing, making sure that there wasn't cameras and things of that nature in the area that he wanted to go to, yada, yada, yada. And so it's possible that that's the case there. Now, we don't know that they didn't find skin cells or anything in that kitchen. Right? But if they found skin cells or sweat or any of those type of things in the kitchen, remember, the PCA only needs the bare minimum stuff. Maybe they're just trying to show the stuff that they know that was brought in by the killer, which is the knife sheath, right? It's not on a rail. It's not on a doorknob. It's not on something that is commonly touched, and it's not mixed, meaning it wasn't transferred by somebody else there. So single source DNA, those type of things. I think they pretty much got, it's pretty obvious they got the right guy there, but yeah, somebody did it, right? Somebody committed this crime. It wasn't imaginary. And so that brings you to the means, right? Like, what kind of person could commit this crime like that? Do you really think that some fraternity kids that were drunk that night are going to be able to get away with something like that? Or how about some guy that been drinking all night also? Because remember, drinking makes you sweat more too. I'm not sure about roids, but I'm pretty sure some alcohol will make you sweat. I also have never done roids, so I don't know the effects of steroids. But, people think that somebody who's steroid raging for roids, can't control themselves, is going to quietly circle the area 3 times, quietly enter into the building and take their lives as quiet and swiftly as somebody who's raging, without yelling, without cursing, without showing any sounds or symptoms of rage. So, there's more to the question and more to the case than just one little thing like, oh man, I don't know how he couldn't have done that. Well, somebody had to. Now, do you think the guy that has been trained in forensics out of DeSales, which is part of the program that you need to take to get your master's, You know, do you think they know a little bit about not leaving their DNA behind at a crime scene or taking the DNA with them? You think they know a lot more about that than perhaps, you know, some of these students? I don't even know what their majors are, right? But, you know, I think one may have been a lawyer or trying to be a lawyer at some point, or that's what his studies are, is in law. That's a little bit different than criminal justice. And that's a lot different than forensic classes that you would have to take. So, yeah, who's more likely to, you know, there's the means of that. There's more than just one answer. Like, oh, you know, it had to have been somebody else because his DNA wasn't found everywhere. Well, were the other people's DNA found there? I mean, you can insert your favorite suspect into it, and at the same time, you would be contradicting yourself because their DNA wasn't found flinged everywhere. In fact, less of their DNA was found at the scene. You know, Bryan Kohberger's DNA was found on the knife sheath, the item that the killer brought in. And if somebody says, oh, yeah, he could have sold it, he could have bought it, could have handled it somewhere, blah, blah, blah. To add the other things that have to have happened that night, shoot, you should have, if you believe that, go buy one lottery ticket for that $1 billion hit, and we'll see if you get lucky. Because that's about the chances that has to happen for all of those things to come into play. Somebody having to match his height and weight, somebody having to also drive a vehicle similar to his down to the front license plate, somebody out there while he was out there at this odd hour of the night, somebody committing this crime while his phone was randomly off or not connected to the towers. Yeah. You know, I mean, if you can't connect those dots, I mean, come on. What are we even doing here? I mean, you know, people would tell me like, hey, you know, look at this theory or that theory. And I'm like, why? You can't even connect simple dots here. Your dots that you're going to connect are what? That some dude in Oregon drove a car that was registered in California. And at one point, some guy that lives in a different part of California had something to do with the victim's house. And it's a money grab. Come on now. How much money did they make? How much money did they make? Yeah, let's get those likes up, guys. Kohberger disorder can have you imagining things that didn't happen in court and imagining evidence that was never entered into evidence. It also blinds you to the cumulative evidence. I agree. Let's see. Guy was 5'3". Yeah, that the other one in 2021. Exactly. March says, saw the whole body cam footage from this. Suspect in the case is too short. BK was still in PA. The police were just checking boxes. Absolutely. Absolutely. As far as all this occurring in 8 minutes, totally possible. Please understand that the killer experienced extreme rage, especially since his plan was thwarted rage. Sane folks won't understand. And so, yeah, no, I get it. You know, you can't look at something reasonably, you know, or look at an unreasonable act through a reasonable mind. It's impossible, right? So you have to go a little bit unreasonable there, right? Like, is this guy just a sick person? Things of that nature. But 8 minutes is completely quite a long time, you know. So right now it's about to be 54 minutes exactly in about 2 seconds on this live, and I'll do this for the next 8 minutes, answering your questions, and we'll see how long that takes. Right now it's been about 7 seconds, and in that 7 seconds, how many times do you think you could swing at somebody? Let's count it like one. I'm going real slow too. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, we've been doing this for 20 seconds. It's only been 20 seconds, y'all. I mean, I don't know how slow people think people are moving. Like, is Bryan Kohberger walking with sand in his pants as he's taking a full minute to cross 20 feet of yard? 40 seconds, guys. I mean, 8 minutes, and I don't think it was 8 minutes because he passed by what at 407:30 something, and then his vehicle's seen leaving at a high rate of speed at 420, 419. Let's put it at 419, right down the street. I don't know how long people think it's going to take for one person to drive at a high rate of speed to get from one block to another, but it's usually a couple of seconds. Oh, we just hit the 1 minute mark. Now, for the next minute, if you guys are on your phone, if you don't mind walking back and forth from one end of your house to the next and see how many times you can do that in the next minute, we'll start that in about 2 seconds. And you guys let me know in the live chat, how many laps back and forth did you do in your house in a span of a minute, starting now? So I guarantee you it only takes me about, I don't know, 14 seconds to walk from my back door to my front door. And I got a 2,400 square foot single story home, so it don't take me very long. I mean, we're at 20 seconds since I started this. How many times have you gone back and forth? Quite a bit, I bet. Quite a bit. Free Bryan, free him to General Pop and let something happen to him. Let's see. She heard his voice. That's a possibility. The suspect is BK's secret shorter twin brother, hence the DNA. Yeah, there you go. We got 10 more seconds. How many times are you walking back and forth in 10 seconds? Pick up the pace. Just remember, he's not walking slow like molasses. He's probably walking with a purpose. And a 1 minute has passed. How many times did you go back and forth in your house? And you tell me, how long do you think it would have taken for Bryan Kohberger to walk from outside of that residence about 15, 20 feet to that backsliding glass door? What do you think it's like? Maybe another 15 feet or so to get through that kitchen up to the stairs. Maybe there's about, we'll be generous and say there's 12 steps up the stairs and another 2 steps into the bedroom. Like, how much time do you really, really think that's going to take? 45 seconds, maybe? So we still have like 4 minutes. We're barely at the halfway point on our 8 minute deal here. Oh, geez. In fact, well, you know what? I think we're actually not there yet. We're not at the 4 minute mark because I think, what did we start? We started at 53. And so that would be, we're about 4 or 5 minutes into it. If you really think that somebody can commit this crime in this amount of time, you guys are wild. Jeff Kernodle. There he goes. Jasmine and Jeff Kernodle. Those are the two for the JKs. 100%. All right. So I think it was 1 more minute still before we get to the 8. Wouldn't framing Jose Cruz be more logical than Bryan? Yeah. There's a lot of more people that would be more logical than Bryan. There was a guy that was convicted murderer and who attempted to stab his wife and cut himself just a couple of weeks after the murders happened. And, just after the murders happened and, I'm sure they brought him in, but no, they decided that the guy in the neighboring university is the guy that committed this crime. It's out of this world. We still actually have another 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes and like 10 seconds to go before we get to 8 minutes. Now, again, I don't think he was in there 8 minutes. I think he was in there about 11. Because if he got there at 4:07, let's put it at 4:08, and then he's taking off at 4. Let's put it, he's seen at 4:20 driving or 4:19, I think. So probably let's put it at 10 minutes. We still have like a full minute and 45 seconds. If I had to add an additional 2 minutes to it, that's a long time, guys. It's a long time. I could easily understand a shiesty mask being described as a ski mask. I wear shiesty when shoveling snow, and my eyebrows are pretty distinct with that one, unless I really pull on it. Interesting. Thank you for joining up, Johnny. Appreciate you. All right. Let's see. Sirius comes on with $5 super chat saying, thank you, Sirius. We appreciate you. Do you really believe that the Naked Man story, another creator was told by sources BF saw a figure in black wearing a mask out front of 1122? I do think that that's what has been reported, or what I have heard. All right, we still got another minute, or actually 45 seconds left in our 8-minute challenge. I should have seen how many questions I could have gone through instead of just counting them out and having you people walk back and forth. Like, how many comments can I go through in 8 minutes? The number one thing that will sober you up is jail. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Does anyone know if there were 2 cars or 1 car during the murder? I think he could be the DoorDash driver. I don't think he's a DoorDash driver. Because, and I'll tell you here in about 5 seconds, because our 8 minutes are about to come up right now. Boom. 8 minutes from 53 to 101. 8 minutes. That's a long time, y'all. That is a long time. I mean, somebody try to talk for 8 minutes. Come up with a, just something random to keep somebody engaged for 8 minutes. It's a long time. But the DoorDash driver reported something, right? They reported something to police. And so if Bryan Kohberger was the DoorDash driver and he reported to police that he was the DoorDash driver and that he was in the area at that night, well, that puts him in the area, that puts him at the house during the time that, roughly around the time that the murders occurred. When you look at everything in the PCA that they put in there, they put the times, they put the downloads, they put the video of where he's driving by and how often and when the car is seen, and then they talk about the sounds. All that is in order to determine the time that this crime was committed. And if he went in there and said, hey, I was a DoorDash person, you could put that in there, and that would really, really put a nail in the coffin. So because of that, I don't think that's the case. He also has a weak alibi where he's claiming he was never in Moscow. And so if he's not claiming to be in Moscow and he reported himself as a DoorDasher, I think that those two things can't exist in the same thing. Why did Blum make note that Xana and Ethan faces were perfectly preserved? Did they have something over their heads during the crime? No, I don't know what he meant by that. I'd have to ask him. I'll send him a message. But from what I know is that when the book says that Ethan may have had a slash to the throat that may have been taken his life, based on the things that I've seen, as far as how can I put this? I've seen part of the crime scene, not the whole thing or anything like that, but I've seen some stuff, and from what I've seen that was in that room, I can say that I can't rule out what Howard Bloom said. It didn't, I know I'm being 100% vague, and you guys maybe are going to get frustrated with that, but I'm not going to say more than I think that, if it was like something else that occurred there, I think there's a possibility that I would have seen other evidence of something else. And so I think that based on what I have seen, that, I think it's pretty accurate that what Howard Bloom is saying. And if that's the case, he took him at the throat. I mean, that's probably why you're not hearing yelling and screaming. All right. And, if he's bleeding internally into his lungs too, I mean, that's going to, and that's a quick way to go too. It's not something that's going to take quite a while. It's going to incapacitate you pretty fast. Yeah. And it may take a minute for you to lose your life, but being incapacitated on the floor from blood loss wouldn't be that long. I mean, we saw the blood coming out of the back of the house, right? And it was coming out of that bedroom. So that tells you that it was probably a pretty major artery that was hit. Probably didn't die quite fast, but quick enough that, just so that they can pump out that much blood. Yeah, I don't want to be too graphic. This is not the place for that. Let's see. Answer just a couple more because I'm almost to the bottom, actually. I stand strong on BF and BM had nothing to do with this. So, yeah, I don't think that DM or Bethany had anything to do with this whatsoever. They had a download of their phones. Let's be reasonable here. If there was some sort of threat, like, hey, or they knew something was going to happen, wouldn't there be documentation on their phone? If they were doing things like selling drugs or whatever the case may have been, like, do you think that these young party kids are going to be going into this like, hey, let's create this underground thing that nobody knows about, and we use burner phones? Everybody that you talk to has to use a burner phone, or whatever the case may be. That's not how things work. That's like movies. That's movie stuff. It's people text people nowadays like, hey, I need to re-up. Can you hook me up? That's literally how those things go down. Like, I don't know where this imagination goes wild that there's, undercover this or undercover that, and super words and secret codes. And that stuff's in the movies, not even in the movies. If somebody had something like that in the movie, I think that'd be crazy. Let's see. Do I don't know. Do you? Let's see. Sergeant Friday says Bethany's room faces the front parking lot. Either way, it's in the first floor, right? So if from what I understand, and I think this is probably true, if Xana and, I think she's the one that walked out and said, I think somebody's here. If that can be, if she heard something and that's what, caused her to go out there. And we know Dylan is hearing things from the second floor. Why wouldn't Bethany be able to hear something from the first floor on the second floor? Regardless if they were right under or next to or in the same vicinity, that's pretty close. I think it's very much possible that she could have gone up the first floor to see what the commotion was, or creeped up there and saw somebody walking out. If you're looking from the door, from the stairway, and you walk out a little bit, you can see back there. Now, if you were Dylan, for instance, and you were in that one little area, you won't be able to see if somebody's coming up the stairway, right? You can't see that way. That's blocked off. And so I don't think that she would have been able to see Dylan in that doorway either. So, I mean, regardless, at the end of the day, I think she heard something. Now, I know that there's some folks that think, well, it couldn't have been Bryan Kohberger because she saw someone. I don't understand the connection there. I don't get it. I don't get how her seeing somebody, unless she saw somebody who was like 7'5" and was a different race and completely different person. How is it excluding Kohberger, right? Let's see. Yeah, true story. Daniel, what about the ex-military who has a residence on Taylor and in Pullman on Latah and inserted himself into the case early? How did he insert himself into the case? Are you talking about Kopaka? Like, one, I think a lot of your stuff there is very wrong about what you're saying about Kopaka. And two, wouldn't he be a better fall guy than Bryan Kohberger? Now, I'm not sure if that's what you're trying to tell me. Like, what about that guy? Wouldn't he be a better fallman? I don't know if you're trying to tell me that. What about him? Or if you're trying to tell me as far as him being a better fall guy, or if you think that maybe he could have committed the crime. I don't think he committed the crime. There would be no reason to, like, what would be the purpose of framing Bryan Kohberger if they thought that Brent Kopacka was the guy? Or it was the guy. Let's just say he was. Where do you get this? Like, all right, you know what? We killed this person as a police officer and law enforcement. They killed him, Kopacka. And some people are a little bit suspicious about it for whatever reason. I think anything that the police do is suspicious to a certain person's. You know, like I say, to a hammer, everything is a nail. But they feel that there's some suspicious things about it. And, well, if that's the case, wouldn't it be easy to just say, hey, you know, this guy did it, can't defend himself. He lost his life. He attempted to hurt his roommates. Case closed ish, right? Because you can't really close it because he's deceased, so it's going to remain open. You can't get into the files. You can't look at it. You can't do any of those things, and it forever stays like that. Don't you think that would be easier for the police department to do versus, you know what? That's not the perfect fall guy. Let's go target a criminal justice student that's on the PhD program at the neighboring city. How do they even know who he is? I don't know. Let's see. I thought I saw somebody put something. Let's see. Why would he leave a high rate of speed? Why would he, well, he's trying to get away from the crime. Okay. Do you think that the trial will start in August 2025? If I had to take a guess, I would say yes. You can do a million things in a couple of minutes. Yeah. That's true. I completely understand, and I'm aware of that, but police have never said there was only one weapon used. Have they said that it was more than one weapon used either? You know, could there have been a secondary knife or something of that nature? Maybe, I guess. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know how a secondary weapon would say that it was somebody else either. You know, a lot of these persons that commit these spree killings carry more than one weapon. Let's see. The Custer standoff at Battle of Little Bighorn was about 20 minutes. Yeah. I don't know why people think time goes so slow. Thank you so much for your $1.99 super sticker, Grichinario. I hope I said that right. Almost to the bottom. He definitely could have undressed outside before leaving, shoving everything in a bag, shutting in seconds. Yeah, 100%. So it's been alleged that he purchased a K-Bar knife a couple of months before the murders. He also purchased a jumpsuit a couple of days, I think, maybe a week or so before the murders. You know, a jumpsuit doesn't take very long to get in and out of. I mean, this guy was also in pretty good shape. He was running a mile in a minute, which, I mean, when I was 28, I was running a lot faster than that, but that's here nor there. I used to actually, my fastest mile that I've ever ran was 4:52. So I was pretty quick back in the day. And that was when I was about 27. Well, I digress. I think I've actually showed a picture out here of me at a younger age when I was in like really amazing shape. I'm gonna get back there one day, guys. You know, whenever. It's my New Year's resolution every year. Well, anyways, you know, he ran a mile in 6 minutes. That's pretty, I mean, that's impressive. That's not slow. I think your average time is about 7 minutes or so. So it's pretty good. You know, I think that a person who's young and flexible and agile and who's able to run like that, who's a kickboxer, was physically active, did reportedly bicycling and hiking and things of that nature in parks and runs for long distances. I can assume that they can get in and out of some clothing fairly quickly, especially if it's a zip up, jumpsuit type of thing. I don't think it would take very long to do so. And he also has experience in how to probably search a vehicle, as far as looking for DNA and how that process would begin. And, that comes with his courses in forensics. Like, I didn't take a criminal justice. Well, let me rephrase this. I did take a criminal justice class, but I didn't take a PhD class, and I wasn't in a university like DeSales. I was more into like the community university. Well, anyways, it wasn't even a university, but I digress. Even in those smaller classrooms, or even when I was in the police academy, we had courses on forensics. Probably wasn't as extensive as what Bryan Kohberger went through, but a big part of it was, how to search for it, where to look, things of that nature, how not to contaminate a scene with your own DNA, and how not to take the scene with you. Right. So those are things that are taught even at the basic minor levels. So I can only assume, because I like I said, I've never honestly been in any university like that and taken those courses that Bryan Kohberger has, but I would assume that they're more in depth up there once you get into those courses that are like a semester long, that are specifically in forensics and things of that nature, not a 2-week course dedicated to forensics like I took. You know what I'm saying? There's a big difference there. And so I would assume that if I know some things, then he probably knows some things, or more things than I would, especially now too. Last time I was in college, or as a studying criminal justice, or in the academy aspect, about 20 some years ago. So things are a lot different now than they were back then. And so take that for what it is. But for somebody now, I would assume that they would be able to, know quite a bit. There was a gun show at the East Side Marketplace the weekend before. Did BK attend? If so, could it be a connection to the Sheath neighbor? CRMK is known to sell there. I need to check him out. I'm not sure. I heard it was off of Amazon, but I could be wrong. We would know if BK was the DD driver. Yeah. Boom. Angel Fire comes in. I agree with you on this one, 1000%, Danielson. I think I know who that might be. There's only one person that calls me Danielson. But thank you, Angel Fire, for your $20 super chat. I appreciate that. We appreciate you here. Let's see. I'll come back to that one in a second. Justine Oki comes in with a $2 super chat saying, my BD is in August. My birthday is in August. Can I get a trial for my birthday? Can you get it? Hopefully it's a conviction, for your birthday. All right, so let's see. I thought I saw one here. BK had planned this, had this plan to the T. Like Steve G said, BK had a kit and wore a mechanic suit like Michael Myers. Horrible what those innocent young people had to go through. He is, in fact, the boogeyman. Yeah. I mean, just think about where he said he was at, too. You know what I mean? His alibi says he was in the Wildlife Park where and there was a body found back in the 70s. It's been alleged it possibly could have been Ted Bundy. Now, I know a lot of people are going to yell and stuff and scream, say, oh, Ted Bundy didn't do that. It doesn't matter if Ted Bundy did it or not. It's does Bryan Kohberger think that there was a possibility that Ted Bundy did it? That's where it comes in. So before you come at me and start saying Ted Bundy didn't do it, Ted Bundy this, that's not the point. The point isn't whether or not Ted Bundy took LePage's life or not. It's did Bryan Kohberger think that was the case? Let's see. Where are the other drunk turkeys? Man, they've a lot of work and stuff, man. It's going to be kind of difficult for them to get back on the show. So that's why things have changed a little bit. But, I'm hoping soon that we can get everybody back on here pretty soon. Let's see. What are the known DNA? I'm not sure what. The only known DNA we know is Bryan Kohberger's on the sheath. Let's see. Where did he park the car? Or how do we know? Why are we talking facts from an author of a book like sources like Brat? Well, I'm not talking about facts from a book from Bloom, but Bloom did have some sources that are pretty credible, in a bunch of different places. So I know that maybe at one point he had Brett Norton as a source. I don't know if that's still the case, or how far or how long, or in his book how much of her information or input was put into it. But right now I'm not talking about anything from anybody else's book. This may be from something else. But what I am saying is, if he was right about one thing, which is that the FBI knew who Bryan Kohberger was before, who's to say he wasn't right about everything else he said? Why don't we hear anything about Bryan's time in Boise? No leaked stories like when he was in the court jail. Well, he's more secluded by himself. Truth Exposed says, I can thank a couple of peoples for the theory that ex-military or secret DEA agents. Oh my God. Like when I heard this one guy say that Brent Kopacka had, jumped out of a plane and parachuted onto the third floor, I about thought to myself, how do people believe this? Like, how is this a believable thought? And if there are so many people that actually believe this, whether it's that or these DEA agent bullcrap that you're saying these people are, or the bullcrap that these people are spewing, not that you're saying that truth, but that these other people are spewing, like, do you really truly believe that? Or are you just trying to say something to be controversial so that people watch your videos? Because I have a hard time believing that people honestly believe that. I mean, if I'm wrong, and there's so many people that believe that it is possible that Brent Kopacka jumped out of a plane and parachuted onto the third floor and took these girls' lives and framed Bryan Kohberger while he was at it by leaving his DNA behind. If you truly believe that, like, shoot, man, I hope you don't make decisions in anything. Not at work, not at school, if you attend school, not at anything. I hope you really are the bottom of the totem pole, because if you're anywhere of importance and you make decisions, whoosh, I'm worried. Let's see. When was I in LA? I was in LA for quite a while ago. Like I said, over about 20 some odd years ago. How many minutes to get from this car? How no footprints outside? How do you know there wasn't footprints outside? Do you really trust Howard Bloom and a reliable source? I trust the information that I know, and knowing some of the sources, I can't. Well, I mean, you don't have to know, like, I guess, his sources or things of that nature. I have other sources that are probably as, like I said, there's some things that I heard from my people. He heard the same things from other people that are pretty up there. So, like, I think that there's if you have two things that are being said out of two different camps, I mean, maybe there's something to it, right? But I get it why people don't like Howard Bloom to a certain extent. Is his information 100% accurate? I think when he put the Jack in the Box and he meant Burger King, or when he put Burger King and meant Jack in the Box, like, that was an honest mistake. I don't think that was anything nefarious or anything like that. But no, I'm not just going off of that. There's a lot more that I'm going off of. Quite a bit more. I mean, more of the stuff that I've put together myself. Where's the connection that BK is to the students? I'm not sure. I mean, what was the connection for, like, BTK to some of the people that he killed, or Mendez or Ramirez, Richard Ramirez? Where was the connection between him and the victims that he had? Did he know them? Did they know him? Were they family friends? Were they, boyfriends and girlfriends that broke up, or things of that nature? Or were these just completely random out of some psychotic people? I mean, sometimes that's what it is. And I think that's what it is here. Let's see. 80s kid, what's up? I don't know if there's an 80s kid in here. I was should be told I was in the 80s as well. Let's see. The restaurant, maybe. I guess DK wasn't alone if he had become demon possessed. I don't know. I mean, don't you kind of have to be evil to commit a crime like this? The guy said that he struggled with emotions and feelings and a bunch of other things. And like I've said in the past, not everybody who struggles with those things will turn out to be a killer or anything like that. But when you have somebody that does commit these crimes, most likely they have those problems. It's kind of like when I say that, you know, everybody that speaks Spanish isn't in the Border Patrol, but everybody in the Border Patrol speaks Spanish, right? So what that means is, like, just because you know somebody that speaks Spanish doesn't mean that they were in the Border Patrol or they're in. You know, it doesn't mean that. But the Border Patrol agents that are in, they all know Spanish. So there's a difference there. Just because he may have lacked remorse and feelings and things of that nature doesn't necessarily make him a murderer or anything like that. It's the other evidence, and then you add that onto it, like, hey, somebody took the lives of these individuals. It appeared that, you know, when you hear something like "I'm here to help you" and things of that nature, kind of sounds like somebody is enjoying it. So, you know, sounds like an evil son of a gun to me. All right, last one. What's strange is Kohberger's dad bringing up the incident with Brent, but not this horrible crime, and Kohberger staring at him like, say no more. That could be it. You know, that could be something there. Maybe he did tell his dad something, but I think that the whole thing as to why he brought up WSU and the shooting and stuff is because that was happening like that in that moment, right? And it happened that night or the day before, something of that nature. I don't think it was anything that was that he was trying not to bring up the other thing, but I do think it is weird that he didn't. So when the guy asked, you know, where you're coming from, he said WSU, the school shooting Pullman. I think that when he said, like, what do you mean? Like, well, that's what he asked me. He's like, what do you mean? What SWAT team? And he went more in depth into that. I do think that, you know, I don't know if I think there could be something there, but I'm not sure yet. But I do think that I think his family did suspect him of things. I think a lot of people did. There was a lot more people than that we know of that suspected him of being a monster. All right, guys. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. I appreciate you all. You guys have a great night, and I'll be back this weekend. I have some information that I want to talk over on the Karen Reed case that I'm looking into. We're going to just kind of break down the interviews that she's had and stuff like that, and listen to her words and things like that. So you don't want to miss it. Check us in on Saturday. Hit that like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. You know what to do. That being said, I'm out of here, guys. You guys have a great night. Peace.